discussed in the last class, I will just show you. I'm not getting answers from you, so if one thing I will only just stop it. Okay. So we were discussing about the molding sand composition in the two classes back, right? And then we had a discussion about different types of molding sand, like baking sand, which is in primary sand, okay, which has gotten different additions of it. It's a mixture of coal dust, sawdust, and the sand, silica, moisture, and the water. Okay, core sand. This is a sand which is particularly made to manufacture the core, which is a mixture of the sand with an oil binders. And then we had discussed about the green sand, which is a sand which is having a more moisture content, 6 to 8% and 18 to 30%. And then we had discussed about the loam sand, the sand which is mostly made to make an axisymmetrical component, like if you use a sweep pattern, which is this loam sand will have a more clay content, 30 to 50% high clay will be added. In the sense, the more clay will be added so that it will become a thick paste. Okay. Then dry sand, which is a zero moisture content, which is being baked. Right, the strength of the dry sand will be more when compared to the green sand. As the sand will be dried, the strength will increase. Right. Then this is a facing sand. This is for easy removal of the pattern from the walls of the cavity what you manufacture. Right. So you will be sprinkling it, and you will maintain a certain surface thickness onto the pattern. Before pouring the baking sand, you will first fill it with the facing sand, and then this is a parting sand, where to distinguish the coke half and the drag half, you will be pouring the parting sand so that the sand will be in contact with the face of the pattern. So for the easy removal of the pattern without any shake allowances, without any shake, because of the shake allowance there will be a deflection. So for easy removal and for not to avoid this clinging of the pattern, you will be pouring this parting sand. And this is a system sand, where in the large industries they will be using the recycled sand with an addition of the water and sufficient amount of the optimum amount of the water in the clay, and they reuse it. This you call it as a system sand, right? And then I had shown what are all the apparatus in our college. So we have sand siever, sand rammer, sand permeability tester, right? Universal sand testing machine, and even we have even mold hardness tester also. And then we had discussed about the testing of sand. Did I let me? I had recorded the session.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Okay. So then the testing of sand properties. Before testing, you need to prepare the proper sample. Then we had discussed about how do you calculate how much amount of the moisture content is being added. So how do you do? By different three methods. One is by weighing before and after, and the other one is a moisture teller method. The third one is a calcium carbonate, which is reacting with the moisture content, and you get an acetylene. And this acetylene, which is being collected, will show you the how much amount of the moisture content. And this multiplied with 2, I didn't see yet. Friday, I will be giving you a clarity about weighing difference into 2. Okay, and then this clay content also the same thing, where the sand when you wash the molding sand with the water thoroughly, because of the density, the molding sand will be getting down and the clay will be floating up. So you will be that is a traditional method. Here you are using a different chemicals, like caustic soda, and mixing it with the distilled water continuously, rigorously. You are stirring it, and then you are removing the clay out, and you will be removing it, and the dried sand what is left down, that you will weighing before and after into 2 times, you will get the clay content. And then we had discussed about the sand grain size. How do you calculate how well you are using the sand grain size from the top sieve to the bottom sieve? When I'm pouring a dried molding sand from the upper to the lower sieve, the sand grains are being filtered down, and you will be measuring the retained sand in each sieve. That you will take it as an Fi, the amount of sand retained in the ith sieve. Okay, first sieve, second sieve, until the ith sieve, and you will be multiplying it with the corresponding multiplying factor of that ith sieve plate divided by the total mass of the sand, that the total mass of the dried sand that you had used. So by this you will be getting the GFN number. Okay, that GFN is a grain fitness number. It is a qualitative indication of the grain distribution of the sand. Okay, then the formula is given there. GFN is equal to Mi into Fi by Fi. And then I had said that GFN number, based on the number, different materials, for different materials, different numbers, that type of sand is only suitable for that material, right? And then we had discussed about the permeability number. This is very, very important, and they don't ask you directly in your examination explain the permeability number, but in your gate they will just they will ask you to calculate the permeability number. They will give you the pressure and the time. Simply substitute the pressure and the time in seconds, pressure in gram per centimeter square, right? And you will be getting the permeability number. So rate of flow of air passing, rate of flow of air passing through the standard specimen under standard specimen under the standard pressure. Rate of flow of air passing through the standard specimen under standard pressure is called as a permeability number, right? So all of you please make a note of this formula. P is equal to 501 into 228 by P into T. Okay, so this is a permeability tester. What we had discussed in the last class. You will be having a knob, you will be having an orifice with a jar which is filled with the water with a lid. So when you close the lid, because of the pressure, the air will be moving from the jar towards the sample, right? There will be a pipe downwards that you can see the circuit, how the air is being moving from the orifice towards the specimen tube, and you will be calculating the pressure in the manometer reading, right? This is the sand rammer for preparing the specimen. For preparing the specimen, sand rammer is an equipment. You will be given the test specimen tube with an sand pusher. Specimen pusher. So the weight, the weight of there will be a fixed weight. So that will be of 6.35 to 7.25 kg. It is allowed to ram the specimen. There will be a three lines. So 3 times you have to rotate the lever such that the ramming will be done 3 times, so that it will maintain 5.08, right? Or 50.8 centimeters. 50.8 centimeters will be in the height of the specimen. Okay. So by moving it to the 3 times, the lever will be at the last line, and the specimen you will be taking out with an specimen pusher. The specimen pusher, you have to simply rotate it and the specimen will come out. You can use that for the permeability or the green strength or dry strength testing machine. Okay, so this is about the sand rammer we had discussed. So for today's class, so what is this? This is the universal strength machine, universal sand strength machine. In your college, we have this machine. So this is a measurement of the strength of the molding sand, which is carried on the universal sand strength testing machine. So generally what all you will be measuring? The one is the compression strength, shear strength and the tensile strength. All these 3 strengths are tested by using universal sand strength testing machine. Okay. If you see this, there is an, the equipment has got an indicator there. Okay. There is a wheel, operating wheel. And this is a piston. It is being operated hydraulically. Okay, this is a fixed end and this is a movable piston. Okay, this is a movable piston, right? And this is a fixed end. Okay, in between you will be placing the specimen. Between these two, you will be placing the specimen. The one which I am coloring, this is the test specimen. Horizontally, you will put the test specimen. You will vertically, it will be right. So you will be putting the horizontal test specimen. One will be the fixed end, and other one will be the movable piston. So to this movable piston, you will be having an adapter. Okay, to this movable piston. 1 minute. I'll just choose another color. Okay, so there will be an adapter fixed to this. Okay, this is an adapter. Okay, this is a movable piston. So this adapter, if you wanted to measure an green compression strength. So what is this green compression strength? The stress required to rupture the sand specimen under the compressive load. So what is this compression? I want a definition of compression. What is this compression? You have compressive load, tensile load in your strength of norm subject. What is this compressive load? I want the definition of compressive load and shear load. Yes, please give the definition of the compressive load.
We say it is we say a load is compressive when the forces are acting towards each other.
Can you repeat it?
We say the load is compressive when the forces acting towards each other.
Towards each other, right? So what is the shear load? Shear load.
When the forces are acting perpendicular to the surface.
So whether it gives any twisting moment? Do it give any twisting moment?
Yes.
Right. So here you will be measuring green compression strength, tensile strength, and even shear strength. The machine is same, but here the adapter will change. For the green compressive strength, the adapter will be round. Okay, but for the shear strength, it will be uncut. For the twisting movement, there will be uncut. Okay, there will be a step. Okay. So here the specimen will be taken. The specimen will be taken from that sand rammer, and it is put in between the fixed and the movable piston, and you will fix the adapter, and you will apply the force such that it will cause a compression failure. Till it gets a failure, you will be taking the reading on this indicator dial gauge. Okay. Once you rotate the lever continuously, at one point of time there will be a compression failure. So at that point, stop rotating the lever and take the reading. So that you will get the green strength of the sand. So generally the green strength of the sand will be 30 to 160 kilopascal. Okay, I repeated, the green strength of the sand will be between 30 to 160 kilopascal. So nothing, you will be just rotating it. You will apply force by rotating the lever. Rotate it until it causes a compression failure, right? So then you take the reading. So that is green compression strength. Okay. Then the next one is the green shear strength. The same thing. You remove that adapter and you will fix an shear strength, the shear plate, right? So the step shear plate, you will fix it, right? And then the stress required to shear the specimen along the axis, you call it as a shear strength. So you rotate it, and you will see whether after you get the rupture, you will stop rotating and you will take the reading. The generally the shear strength of the green sand will be between 10 to 50 kilopascal. I am talking about the green sand. Okay, so that's why I am mentioning you green compressive strength, green tensile strength, and green shear strength. Likewise, you will also measure the dry strength. The dry sand strength is nothing but the specimen. After you take it from the sand rammer, you will heat it for the 105 to 110 degrees centigrade. Likewise, you are doing the moisture content and clay content. You will also heat the specimen to 105 to 110 degrees centigrade, so that the complete moisture will be expelled. For 2 hours, you will heat it, and that sand, whatever the specimen, you will take it and you will fix it in between these two ends, right? Generally, the strength, that dry strength will be more when compared to the green strength, right? So the dry compressive strength will be between 140 to 1800 kilopascal. But whereas if you see The green compressive strength will be in the range of 30 to 160 kilopascals, but the dry compressive strength will be between 140 to 1800 kilopascals, right? So can I write this numbers there? I think I didn't write. I will just write it. Please, all of you make a note of it. I'll write the corresponding values range for the green strength, green compressive strength, green shear strength, and dry compressive strength. Are you all there?
Yes.
Please, all of you note this. When I check your notes, I will be seeing all these values. So you will be getting in your public sector examinations, government exams, they will ask you these values. They will not ask you directly the definition. So in your college, after writing this, I will explain. Kilopascals. Right, so all of you note this values. So in your college, you will be given an experiment to calculate, to test the sand specimen. So the procedure will be, you will be, yes?
Is that 1800 kilopascal or 180?
140 to 1800. It is 1800.
Okay.
It's not 180, 140 to 1800. The range will be.
Okay.
Okay, what we'll do, we will also test this in our college. So you will be given the jar, that the test tube. So take the sand, do the sand ramming process, and we'll do this dry strength. We can't do this dry strength because we need to have a furnace. So we will check this green compressive strength and the shear strength. Whether we are getting it in this range or not, we will check in our college. Okay. It is the values given in the textbook. We will check in our college based on because the test specimen is fixed, right? The same 50.8 centimeters, the same cross-sectional area will be used. So we will check it in our college and we will have a note on it, right? Is it clear?
Yes.
Can I go to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so this is a mould hardness tester. So it is just like a Brinell hardness test. So I think you are familiar with this Brinell hardness. I would like to know what you are done with this. What is this? What is the definition of hardness?
Ability of a material to resist penetration, indentation, and scratching.
Ability of a material to resist
Penetration, indentation.
penetration and indentation or a scratch mark. So what are all the hardness testing machines you had used? What are all the hardness? Yes?
Brinell's hardness.
Okay, Brinell, Rockwell, Vickers. Yes? Still?
That's it.
Okay, for which type of materials you had used Brinell hardness? So you should know for which material. Huh?
Ferrous material.
Ferrous? Huh? Okay, now I'll just ask a question and then I need an answer from you. For softer materials, which type of hardness testing machine is suitable? For
Brinell,
softer
ma'am.
materials, Brinell.
Brinell.
Why not Rockwell?
Ma'am, Rockwell is for hard materials, ma'am. The
Why not
denting.
Vickers then?
Ma'am, we use a ball-like structure to dent for soft materials, ma'am.
For harder materials?
We have diamond cutting.
Mm. Okay, then now tell me, is this sand suitable for the Brinell hardness? You said for softer material. Now tell me, now categorize for which type of hardness tester is suitable for this molding sand.
Ma'am,
Only just
I
take the green sand. Okay, I'm just talking about the
Brinell.
green. Okay. Generally, if it
Ma'am,
is
I
a
think
green sand, you will go it for the Brinell. Okay. So you have yes, very good answers. For testing this hardness, you have a mold hardness tester on the screen that is being given. So there will be a spring-loaded steel ball of mass 0.9 kg. A spring-loaded steel ball of mass 0.9 kg is indented onto the standard specimen, right? So the ball mass will be 0.9 kg. So the depth of indentation will be directly given in the scale from 0 to 100. Okay, 0 to 100. And if there is no penetration, the range, then it will be between 0 to 100. When it sinks completely, when the ball indenter will sink completely, the reading will go to 0, right? So the range will be between 0 to 100. It could be 10, 20, 30 based on the hardness property of the sand. You will be measuring it, right? So just like your Brinell hardness, Rockwell hardness, Vickers hardness, there is a separate equipment for measuring the hardness of the sand specimen, right? So the ball indentation, the mass of that will be of 0.9 kg. So this is about the different properties about, yes?
Ma'am, sand is porous, no ma'am, so there is no chance of hardness.
No, here you're binding it with the clay and you're mixing it with the sand and you're ramming it tightly, isn't it? The molecules will be locked. It is not loosely thrown out, right? It is bonded. It is bonded with the binding agent and the water, and you're ramming it. You're ramming it, isn't it? So you need to test even the hardness also. Why do you test the hardness? What is meant by hardness actually? Why do you test the hardness? Yeah,
To
tell
know the
me.
strength of the material.
No, hardness is not a strength. What is then hardness? What is then hardness?
ability of a material to resist
Mm.
indentation, penetration, and scratchings.
So is it needed? Is it needed for the sand? You just think and tell me
Yes, ma'am.
why it is needed.
Ma'am, because if it isn't hard while molding, it may break down and
It may break down, or it may break down into pieces, and it may distort the cavity. You're thinking about the sand. Okay, sand doesn't need, but you're using the sand to create the cavity, right? That shape what is created by the sand, that cavity, it should not be distorted, right? When I'm placing some indentation, how much amount of the resistance toward that indentation you have to calculate it. So that's why now when they go for any molding procedure, they test the mold hardness of that sand. They do a thorough ramming, and the rammed sand only they will test it, not to the loose sand. Right? Is it clear?
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Can I go to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't write anything on the screen. Please I repeat it again, it is similar to the Brinell hardness. A spring-loaded steel ball of mass 0.9 kg is indented into the standard specimen tube. The depth of indentation is that is measured is in the scale of 0 to 100, right? So now the next topic for today's session is the molding machine. So we are done with the sand. How do you prepare the cavity? How the cavity is being done? How do you prepare the patterns? Right? We had just seen a procedure of the sand casting. So now the next topic is about molding machine. What is this molding machine? So these machines are nothing but they are used to do the ramming process. In our college, we are having a rammer. Rammer will be of a round shaped base with an provision to hold it, and you will be beating it thoroughly onto the wall so that the sand will be attached, the sand will be bonded with the clay and the water. Though you mix it, it has to bond, it has to mix it, it has to bond, and it has to take the shape of the flat, and the cavity has to be created. But in large scale productions, they cannot beat it. They cannot beat it, right? So these molding machines are being used for ramming the sand uniformly. Ramming the sand uniformly. So there are three machines: squeezers, jolt machines, sand slingers. Okay, squeezers, jolt machines, sand slingers. Three are of different varieties. Sometimes you can use a combination of squeeze plus jolt, jolt squeezer machine. Sometimes they use only jolt machine. Okay, now we will see what are these squeezers. Okay, so if you see it in the diagram here, this is a squeezer, right? So the main parts of the squeezer is a machine table. This is an work board. Okay, the board to hold the pattern, and to the use the highlighter here, right? So this is a machine table, the first part. The second one is the workboard. Okay, to that there will be a pattern. On the pattern there will be a flash. Okay, onto the flash there will be a sand frame. Okay, onto the sand frame there will be a squeeze head. Okay, we have to study it from the bottom to top. Okay, so machine table, workboard, flash, sand frame, and squeeze head. So now we will see how it works. Okay, so first the pattern plate, whatever the pattern, it is being clamped to the machine table. So to this machine table you will fix a workboard. Onto that you will clamp. Clamp is nothing but you will be fixing the pattern. Okay, then onto that a flash is put in the position. Onto that what you will put? You will put the flash upside down onto the pattern, right? Onto that you will place the sand frame. Okay, so now after fixing this flash along with the sand frame, now you will fill it with the sand. There will be an hopper. From the hopper the sand will be filling, and the sand, whatever the place that is being filled with the flash and the sand frame, these two boxes will be filled with the sand, right? So after filling it with the sand, this table will be there, right? This machine table will move from the bottom to the top. So before moving this, there will be a squeeze head. This is stationary. The squeeze head is stationary, and this is a machine table. So what will happen? This will slowly move upward, and it will touch this squeeze plate, right? So this squeeze head, when it is in touch with the sand frame, to the bottom of this sand frame is there, right? So this will press because of the movement from bottom to top. The sand frame will be in touch with the squeeze head. The squeeze head will be of certain weight. Okay, so it is applying the pressure onto the face of the sand frame. Because of the pressure, this sand frame is again applying pressure onto the flask, the face of the flask. So as because of the continuous movement from the machine table towards the squeeze plate, from the bottom to the top, because of uniform pressure, the sand will be rammed uniformly. Because of the pressing from the bottom to the top, the squeeze head will enter into the sand frame and it will compact the sand such that the level of the sand frame will be equivalent to the level of the flask. This level will be matching with this level of the flask. So what happens? Because of pressing it, the mound at the mound end there will be more hardened. The sand will be more tightly rammed when compared to the pattern. So continuous moving up and down, only the machine table up towards the squeeze and the squeeze will be pressing it and again the machine table will come down. So that's why you call it as squeezing, right? So instead of ramming it with a hand rammer, you are using an equipment which will be squeezing continuously with a stationary head and a movable machine table. So this you call it as a squeezer, right? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So now is the second machine called as a jolting machine. Okay. Jolting, what is meant by jolting? What is meant by jolting?
Vibrating.
Vibrating, right? Jolting is nothing but vibrating, right? So here it is similar to the squeezing machine, but what it is I will just draw it, okay? I'll draw it so that you will understand. Please don't mind, I cannot draw it perfectly, but I wanted to explain it, right? So this is plunger, okay? P stands for plunger, okay? And this is a machine table or table, okay? Here I will be putting the drag flask, okay? Here I will be putting the drag flask and this is the springs, okay? Here there will be an provision, okay? Right. So what is this is a compressed air will be blown into this and this is a plunger or a piston, right? So what it will do, because of the air, the compressed air, this plunger will be moving up and down, right? So to this plunger there will be a springs attached. What is the usage of springs is spring will absorb energy. So as to this plunger, to the top of the plunger there will be a table, okay? To this table they will fix the flask. It could be coke or it could be drag, whatever the flask they want with a pattern, right? They will fix it. So as the plunger is moving up and down, when the plunger when it is in up position, it is just like your engine, top dead center, bottom dead center. The plunger it is at the top dead center. So the flask will be at an height, right? Suddenly it will drop down, coming up and coming down, moving up and moving down. So because of this, what will happen? The shock waves will be generated, and these shock waves are generated, and because of the successive impact up and down, the ramming of the molding sand, whatever the sand that is poured inside this flask, will be uniformly distributed. The motto of this is you have to distribute the sand uniformly and it has to be rammed thoroughly, right? So the main thing is you have to move it up and suddenly you have to pull it down, pulling up, pushing up and pulling down. So how you do it? By using some plunger, hydraulic or a pneumatic system. You will use a piston and that piston will be moving the total table up and total when it is coming down the sand will be settled. Again it will be moving up and when it is coming down the sand will again settle layer by layer and it will be uniformly distributed. So this you call it as a jolting machine, right? Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll also show you the video also. Then the last one is a sand slinger. Okay, sand slinger machine. So you can see in the diagram given here, this is the sand slinger machine. There is a rotating impeller. Okay, so the molding sand is fed into this housing containing an impeller. This will be rotating rapidly with an horizontal axis. The rotating impeller will be rotating continuously and the sand will be slowly entering inside. Okay, the sand particles that are picked by this rotating blade will be thrown. The sand which is moving around and rotating around, that will be sprinkled onto the flask. Underneath that, there will be a flask. So because of rotating with a more kinetic energy, the sand will be sprinkled down onto the layer by layer onto the pattern or the flash that is being kept at the down. So these sand particles which are picked up with a rotating blade with a high speed, it will be moving, it will be thrown out into the pattern, and this is mostly suitable for the large scale production, or it is here the flask size is not limited. You can use large size of the flask also, because it is not in contact, the rotating impeller, it is not in contact with the flask. So underneath that you can put large or small sizes of the flask, and the high speed that is being gained by the rotating impeller, that sand will be sprinkled onto the pattern. So this is sand slinger machine. Okay, so both the first two is because of the pressure, right? So because of the movement of the machine table towards the squeeze space. But in the second one, if you see the flask is being in contact with the plunger because of the movement of the up and the down, because of the shock wave, the sand is being applied layer by layer. Here you are sprinkling the sand, and this is only meant for the flask. The size of the flask is large, then they go for the sand slinger machine, right? So we'll go to a video, we'll see this video. Just see the video. I think audio is not available. It's a 7 minutes video. Please see and tell me what you had understood. It's about jolting and jolt squeezing machine, right? Please see it.
I'm gonna pull the screen.
It's a manual foundry. So now they used an advancement like jolting, squeezing, slinger machine. They are giving you the advantages of manual versus the automatic, what we had discussed now. The pre-jolting operation, where the sand is being poured with an hopper. It is vibrated so that sand will be settled.
Ma'am, the pattern will move, no, ma'am, while vibrating.
Pattern will be down. No, you see it, you see it. They are cutting the screw cuttings and venting holes. This is a drag off. This is a cope off. Align pins to align the cope and the drag off. You see how the cavity is being done, and this was a manual transfer of one to cope and the drag. Pouring lines and cooling lines. Sun feeder belt, sand feeding from hopper to the flask. So you can see how the plunger is being moved. You can see there are holes onto the cope for runner, riser. I'm sorry, not runner, screw and riser. See how they will break it. See, they are breaking it and they will remove the solidified component. You can see the component there. How they are reusing that system sand. These are vibrators. Right? So they are removing the component and they will filter the sand. This you call it as fettling. Fettling. I think till here it's enough. So you understood? You understood or not?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you
Ma'am,
understood
is
by this? Yeah, one guy was asking about the pattern. So that's why I said you right based on this shaking of the shaking allowance, distortion allowance, everything they will take it into picture and they will design the pattern. When they are applying a certain amount of pressure, based on that also they will calculate it and they will give the allowance to the pattern so that the pattern should not break. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, understood about this molding machine. What I had shown in the video, it's a combination of jolting and squeezing. right? Is it clear?
Yes.
So these are the machines. The first one is the jolting machine. The second blue color one is the jolting and squeezing. And the third one, the green colored one, is the sand slinger machine. If you see there, there is an impeller. Okay, that is being rotated, and to the bottom of that, based on the distance, based on the speed of the sand that is being sprinkled, they will be placing the flask. Right? Right. So all of you please make a note of this chaplet. I think it's time up 2:15. So from Friday I will be taking chaplets continued with the gating system design. Then the last topic of the unit will be directional solidification. In that we will see what are the chills, what is the purpose of riser, how many risers we have to put so that you will avoid this void, how do it compensate this volume. So where you have to place the riser. There are different positions, like if there is a weak joint, at that position, at that place you will be inserting the keeping this riser. It is not like in the screen I had shown beside to the true riser will be there. It is just for an it's a pictorial picture purpose, but riser will never be parallel to the screw. Okay, wherever it is necessary, where there is an weak places or certain intersection points, there they will insert this riser, right? So just don't leave the session. I'll take the attendance.